Welcome to Audacity Works, a podcast inspired by and dedicated to the working artist, the creative entrepreneur, and generally, doing the damn thing. This exists on the premise that the world belongs to those who have the audacity to believe that their lives have value. This is for you. Welcome to Audacity Works. I am your host, Rachel Strickland, and this is episode number 151. And it's for the witches, because we are in pre-October. And I've had a request from my friend Susannah about how to give tarot readings. To be specific, Susannah asks to explain how it's done and how I use my intuition and empathy and what my experience has been so far. And she's asking because I had the privilege of reading for Susannah at the Irish Aerial Dance Festival and a handful of other folks this past July. And I get not an insignificant amount of questions about tarot, so let's talk about it. What's the deal? And where did I learn how to do that? The answer is nobody taught me how to do that, and everyone taught me how to do that. Let me explain. I've never learned specifically from anyone how to read tarot, but I have had a bajillion teachers. And this is specifically for metaphysical, magical work. I took a course in clairvoyance from Denise Litchfield, and the way that I found Denise was that I Googled the phrase, "I hate meditating, it sucks," and a blog post that she had written came up, and I started looking at her work, and she was just so cool and so human and showing up as herself, and her whole thing was like, yeah, you can develop your clairvoyance without wearing crushed purple velvet. And I thought that was pretty dope, so I learned from her. When I moved to Charleston, I got to learn root work from Ikioma Divine. That's quite a story of, following the white rabbit to have found Ikioma. And even when I met her, she looked at me and she's like, "How did you find me?" I'm like, I don't know. I was looking very hard. And another teacher of mine has been my good friend, Andrea St. Amand, who is an evidential psychic medium. And I took, a couple of years ago, I took a 6-week course from Andrea on mediumship. Not to mention just all of my friends who have so much wisdom, and we share that wisdom together. But I've never actively and specifically sought out learning about tarot from someone else. And I don't even know why. But hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I learned by learning the cards. The deck that I use to read, I have many decks. Many decks have been gifted to me. I only really use one of them regularly. And to give readings, especially for people one-on-one, or if I'm hired to read at a party, I only use the one deck for that. And the reason is because I know it. And the reason that I know it is because for several years I drew a card every morning when I was doing my morning pages, and I would talk about it for a couple of years. Me and Max Cooper each drew a card every morning, and we would talk about it with each other, over text. And over time, you get to know that deck, and you get to know the cards, and they get to know you. And I think this is pretty specific to how I like to read and how I like to go about reading. I am definitely a creature of habit. I find a bra that I like. I wear that bra until it falls apart, and then I keep buying the same one until that company stops making it. And there's some people who love to use like 10 different decks. I don't want to do that. That stresses me out just thinking about it. That doesn't mean it's wrong. It's certainly not wrong. This is just how I do it. I think now would be a good time to clear up a myth. There is a widely circulated belief that it is bad luck to buy your own tarot deck. This is a Bullshit. It's not true. It's not true. You can sit around and wait for someone to buy you a tarot deck, or you can just go buy one. It doesn't matter. All of it will work. Now, the origin of this myth it seems pretty obvious to me that it would have come out of a time where the first rule of magic was secrecy. And it wasn't because it was coming from like a gatekeepery place. It was because it was fucking dangerous. It was dangerous for people to know that you did this, that you were interested in this, that you were studying this. And arguably that could still be true in lots of places. America. But, fuck it. But the secrecy surrounding the occult used to be very functional. It was like, let's stay alive. Let's not be unalived because of our interest and our connection to the occult. Makes sense. It doesn't make sense anymore. You are far more likely to be targeted because you have a vagina than you are interested in witchcraft. But that's where I believe that sort of myth comes from, and I think we can be free of it. You can buy your own decks. Magic is secret enough already, so tell everyone. Go buy whatever fucking deck you want. You don't have to wait. I did find, and I was looking this up, and I found this charming story on Reddit about there's two ladies in an occult store, and they were both looking for cards, and they had both heard this myth, like it was bad luck to buy for yourself. So one of them was picking out a deck that she was going to ask for her birthday. And the other woman was like super green, and they just sort of like looked at each other, and were like, oh, okay. And then they just picked up the decks that they wanted, and they bought them for each other right there, even though they had just met. And I thought that was very cute. I'll put a link to that in the show notes if you want to read it. And if you want to read like lots of other people saying, no, it's fine, you can buy your own deck, truly. But I don't think that comes from like a gatekeepery place where the high witches of the land are trying to keep shit secret from you. No, I don't think that's it. I think it's just an archaic, outdated way of thinking when it was mortally dangerous for people to know about your interest in tarot and the occult. This is the same reason at one point it was an act of love for a mother to like punish her daughter for wearing a short skirt. Like, she didn't want her daughter to be freaking attacked. At the heart of it, it was based in an act of love. It had other effects. But anyway, I digress. So I use a particular spread. The deck that I use is the Thoth deck, which was made by Aleister Crowley. Don't care if I'm saying his name wrong. That guy's weird, but I do enjoy his deck. And the artwork is done by Lady Frida Harris, and they worked together on this deck. And there's a particular spread that was created for this deck, and that's the spread that I use. There's a whopping 15 cards in that spread. So why do I use that spread? For the same reason that I use this deck. Because I know it. I am not a person who enjoys referring back to a book. Like, okay, so I've got this spread in front of me. Wait, what does this card mean again? I know that lots of spreads are really useful, but I only use this spread because I know it, and I don't want to be like looking back and forth to a tiny booklet to remind me what something is. Someday I might want more spreads at my disposal, but for now, this is like, I call it the Big Mama spread because 15 cards is a lot. And it ain't broke, so I don't see a need to fix it. But use whatever spread you want. Use whatever deck you want. I do think there's value in getting to know a particular spread and a particular deck really intimately. It gives you freedom within that deck and within that spread so that you don't have to look something up because you already know it so well. So, okay, here's where we get to the functional woo, because so far it's been tools, right? A tarot deck is a tool. A spread is a tool. So how do you take those tools and turn it into a reading that actually takes into consideration the human being sitting across from you. I've never actually asked anyone else who read tarot how they did it. So I'm really realizing while making this episode just how insular my tarot practice has been, which doesn't bother me at all. I'm actually quite happy that I've formed such a robust practice just in my little insulated Rachel world. But like I said, I'm pretty greedy for learning in most other avenues. Anyway, so I will try my best to explain this. So yeah, you could lay the cards out and you could read the cards. But if you want to read for someone, then you also need to be able to learn how to read their energy. And you can't read someone else's energy if you don't know the difference between your energy and their energy. And we could get into all the different clairs here, like clairvoyance, clairaudience. I'm not very clairvoyant, and I'm not very clairaudient, and there's like 5 other clairs, right? But I am quite clairsentient. And that's the intelligence that I have the most access to, so that's the intelligence that I use to read someone else, which is only by permission, by the way. Consent is important. This is a side note. Have you ever spent time with someone who was very clearly like trying to feel into your energy and you're like, ew, get off me? Even if you don't study this stuff, you can feel it because it's a very animal thing to do. It's not supernatural, it's natural. So even if you have no time spent studying the occult or energetic signatures, you can still feel it. And you're like, ew, get your grubby little energetic paws off me. So yeah, that consent is important. So if I'm going to read for someone, I have their consent. It is permissive by nature. So when I sit them in front of me while I'm shuffling the cards, and they might be making small talk and I'm listening to them, but I'm also making my energy field permeable and letting them feel me and drawing them in so that I can feel them. Kind of like a snake tasting the air. And since I know exactly what my energy tastes like, for lack of a better word, I know when I'm tasting theirs. And there are somatic responses as well that I watch for. One of my teachers called it a calling card. That you'll know that you've plugged into someone and that they've plugged into you because you get a somatic response. This can be like a chill up the spine. It can be like a warmth across the shoulders or across the solar plexus. There's no right, there's no wrong. It's different for every somatic body. And once I get that somatic confirmation, I know, all right, we're plugged in, we're tapped. I can stop shuffling and lay out the cards and do the reading from there. This is a method of connection that I call active empathy. And empathy is something that I've talked a lot about, something, of course, all humans have access to. Some humans have so much access to it, they wish they had less. And that's typically what we refer to as someone who identifies as an empath, which means they're super sensitive to other people's energetic bodies, other people's emotions, and at some point it becomes problematic because empathy and codependence tend to go hand in hand. That's actually one of the earlier podcasts that I recorded was empathy and codependence. I'll link that in the show notes. But in the Venn diagram of people that I work with, as artists, particularly performing artists, and other individuals that I tend to work with, both like on stage and behind the scenes and in my coaching practice, in the Venn diagram of like neurodivergence and queerness and empathy, they all overlap heavily. And in the center of that Venn diagram is like art. And in my coaching practice in the Audacity project, it was very clear to me from the get-go, like there's a lot of heavily empathic people in this group, and there are no readily available tools for people that have like a lot of access to empathy, particularly when it's not on purpose. Like, it would be awesome if I could control this. And I like that it's there. I'd like to be able to use it, but I have no control over it, and that sucks. But there are tools. There are tools for this. There are two that I'm going to list here, and I'll put links to them in the show notes. These are two webinars that I filmed years ago. The first one I have sent, it's by far the one that I've sent to more than any other. It's called Practical Empathy, How to Use Your Gift Without Losing Your Shit. And that it's step one in like connecting via clairsentience, which is if you want to be able to purposefully read someone else's energy, you need to know what your own energy tastes like. And this is how to do that, right? And that was, it went so well, and I wanted to go deeper, so I created a second webinar called Practical Empathy 2, and that was about how to actively use your empathy, your sensitivity, your whatever on purpose. And it doesn't just have to be used during like something so specific as a tarot reading, but even just a conversation, or when you're coaching someone. This is also like a taster of what I've taught at Creatrix, my witch retreat, for lack of a better word. And if I'm being honest, I sneak a little witchcraft into everything that I teach. Not even on purpose. It's just a fish doesn't know that it's wet. I am who I am. So if you want to learn how to, one, know what you taste like, and know what someone else tastes like, and how to tell the difference, those are available to you. That's one way that you can begin to learn that. They're both pretty accessible from a price point standpoint. I think one is $20 and the other one is $30, $35. I don't remember, but I will put them in the show notes. They're there for you if you want them. And speaking of the overlap of witchcraft and art, I have an announcement to make, which is that I'll be co-hosting a retreat at Sweet Retreats in Mexico with my dear friend Kristina Nekyia Canizares. That is Kristina of Fit and Bendy for all you OGs out there. So Kristina is very brilliant at mobility work and how to train without constantly getting fucking hurt. So the way that we're going to run this retreat is in the morning, she's going to do mobility. And in the afternoon, I'm going to teach creative excavation like I do. And there's also going to be some time after my class where you can use the tools that you've learned that day on an apparatus of your choice. So there's no dedicated aerial instruction at this retreat. It's a lot of good information, and then time for you under supervision and under expert eyeballs to use the skills that you learned that day on your apparatus. And we don't care what apparatus that is. It could be a martini glass. It can be a rope. It can be the floor. And the reason that I bring this up in an episode about witchcraft is because my dear friend Kristina is quite a powerful witch. So we're both going to be doing what we do together. I know it's going to be a great time. It's January 10th through the 17th. I'll put a link to that in the show notes. It's just being announced now, and it is right around the corner. It's in January. I released it to my patrons last week, and it's public this week. So there's still plenty of room as of, well, I'm recording this on Monday, September the 15th. There's probably still plenty of room 2 days later. So have a look-see. If you have any questions, you know where to find me. I'm happy to answer them for you. So thank you, Susannah, for that question, because this was really fun to talk about. I appreciated that. If you have requests for future episodes, you can reach me always on Instagram at Rachel Strickland Creative or on Patreon at Rachel Strickland Creative. This podcast is powered by Patreon, and oh my goddess, thank y'all so much for your trust. Thank you for standing with me. Thank you for your support. It makes so much possible for me. Thank you. Until next time, my friends, I hope you taste very well today. Don't go back to sleep.